here's the deal as I know it, Cappy, okay?
Yeah, why don't you reset us, just so I understand. Just reset. So it looks like Nico's getting fired today from the Dallas Mavericks, right?
Yeah, so Nico Harrison, okay, gets hired by the Dallas Mavericks, okay? I want to say it was like 2021-ish, sounds about right, okay? Yeah, 2021, he gets appointed as the general manager and president of basketball operations. He succeeds Donnie Nelson, who had been in that role forever, okay, under Mark Cuban, all right? So Mark hires this guy, okay? And that also coincided with them hiring Jason Kidd as the head coach, okay?
Well, first off, they hired him.
Thank you, Wendy.
In Nico's first 3 years, they go to the conference finals twice, okay?
All right.
And obviously won NBA finals. So everyone's just assuming like, oh, man, things are good. Now, what I would tell you is behind the scenes, they were not thrilled, and Nico was at the head of this particular charge about Luka's. I would say this. I'm gonna catch myself here, and I would say they were not happy with Luka's dedication. Okay,
I'm gonna ask you questions along the way.
Yeah, they were not happy with Luka's dedication to his body. Let's just call it that. Okay.
When you say, I just want to ask you, when you say they, because you said you're going to brain dump on us, you said you're going to unload everything you know.
Right.
When you say they, beyond Nico.
Oh, I would say a lot of people in the organization. It wasn't just Nico at this point. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
They were all wondering, like, man, what would he be if he was like really in shape? Like they'd all have that kind of conversation.
Right.
But the
timeline
guy,
that for me, George. When is that?
I mean, this is very early on in 2021.
Okay.
Like the 21-22 season.
Okay. Keep rolling. Yep.
So much so that I remember a specific conversation with someone in the organization where they asked someone I know who had been in the NBA for a long time, hey, man, what do you do, when you, what do you do when your best player is not in the greatest shape, right? And, we all knew what was being discussed there. Right. You know what I mean? And this person, they were like honest but tiptoeing a little bit because they didn't want to get involved. You know what I'm saying? Like they were like kind of like this question's kind of like out of left field. So it was just kind of weird, but hey, whatever. All right. So this dates back to 2021. These conversations are happening. Okay. Within people in the organization, so much so that they're asking other members of the NBA community and family how to handle this stuff, okay?
And Luka at that point, George, how old is he right now? 26-ish, 27-ish?
Correct. So this is 4 years ago.
Okay, so he's a 23-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Okay, keep rolling. I'm trying to just make sure I get all the details lined up. Keep going.
Yeah. So this goes back that far, okay? And throughout time, okay, I would say that is a constant battle, all right?
Okay.
About like, hey, man, like, can we get you in better shape? And they're having these conversations with him, okay? And I think the straw in Nico's mind, who was, again, leading the charge on this stuff, okay? The straw that broke the camel's back was after the NBA Finals appearance against the Celtics, okay? Where it was said to me by someone in the organization that they were hoping that would be the impetus to really drive Luka to get into shape they were hoping he would get into.
What would be the impetus?
That they got to the finals. That they would, and they lost, right? So I remember specifically having this conversation with a member of the Dallas Mavericks organization. And I'll let you figure it out who it is, okay?
Doesn't seem to be that difficult, frankly.
Okay? Correct. Probably not.
Somebody who talks a lot.
But this person said to me, I was around Kobe when he lost to the Celtics, okay? And I remember that when they were playing the song when the Celtics won the championship, whatever song they were playing in the arena, Kobe literally would use that song in his workouts every day.
Yeah.
Every day thereafter until he won the championship. Okay? And he's like, this person said that to me. This person also said to me, I was around LeBron when he lost to Dallas, okay, in 2011. And he went into a deep funk of reflection. And LeBron has talked about this. Like, he literally didn't leave his house for like 2 weeks, okay? And then what did he do? He went into the lab. He met with Akeem. He started working on his post game because he was ridiculed about his post game. And he came out and became one of the better post players in the sport after that. He's like, so we were hoping that that would be the impetus to take Luka to the next level. And then he came back in the same shape, arguably in worse shape than he did the prior season. And that's kind of when we knew, like, hey, maybe this isn't going to work. And that's when the conversations began. So that's the first part. I'll get to the Lakers part after if you have any questions.
Well, let me not so much questions, but let me just say this. So first and foremost, you have a young kid in Luka who is already a professional as a teenager in Europe. And when he comes to the NBA, would you say that he was instantly successful?
Yes.
Would you say that he was instantly a top, call it 10 player in the NBA?
Not instantly, but yes.
But
he
by
becomes
the time
very quickly, yes.
By the time we're talking about, he's a top 10 player, right?
Yes.
He's already been to an NBA Finals, right?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody stop for a second and think to yourself. You're 23 years old. You've been a pro for, like, honestly, like almost, like 5 or 6 years going back to your European days. You're a pro. You're getting paid. You're a great player. You come to the NBA. You're already a player that can help take a team to a finals. So as a kid, you're getting by on what?
On your elite skill.
You're getting by on your God-given talents, the effort that it has taken to get to this elite skill. You're making a lot of money. You're famous. You're seeing success. And guess what? You're doing it, and you're not in the best shape of your life.
Pictures of you drinking beer at restaurants afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, this is the life you're living. Hey, they brought me over here to the United States. They paid me a lot of money. I'm famous. I'm great. And you know what? We're successful. We haven't won a championship yet, but I'm also 23 years old. So, again, I would just say this, that it's kind of hard to find, that LeBron moment you're talking about when he doesn't win the finals and he hibernates for 2 weeks. It's hard to find that Kobe moment when he's listening to the Celtics playing their championship theme. It's hard to ask a 23-year-old kid to all of a sudden embody that mentality. And by the way, one other layer to this, we've all ridiculed Giannis years ago when somebody asked him about getting knocked out, and he said, that's not failure. Just because we didn't win the championship doesn't mean that it's failure.
It's not a failure, Eric.
Yes.
You're talking about two guys in Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. These are American-born players, and winning an NBA championship is the biggest, most important thing in their lives. And now you're taking a Euro player and you're bringing him to America, and you're seeing great skill, but you may not see the similar desire necessarily at the moment. Because, George, I'll stop right here. Because as you progress the story, how does Luka become what he is today? It wasn't because of what you're saying the Mavericks were complaining about back then.
It was because they traded him.
It took a moment. Exactly right. It took a moment, the trade. I'll just get there now then. It took the trade and the personal and professional insults to turn him into what we're seeing now, which is what they wanted him to be back then.
Correct. And the Lakers are going to bear that fruit because of what transpired. Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so now you get to so he's overweight still, and now you're getting ready to trade him.
So now you want to get to the trade part.
Yes. So who actually made it? Was it Dumont telling Nico to go do it, or was Nico like, hey,
again, Nico has been the impetus to all of this. Okay, he has been the driver of, hey, Luka's out of shape, Luka's out of shape, Luka's out of shape, Luka's out of shape, Luka's
and
out
we
of shape.
can't get him to get in shape.
Correct. It permeates the entire organization, where most people agree with him, but But I would say also most people are like, yeah, but we're not trading him. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to just figure it out because he's a generational talent. But he is like kind of hell-bent on it's either got to happen or then maybe we can move on. And he starts to sell Dumont because he's never going to sell Cuban on the idea. Right? Like Mark would have literally laughed him out of the room. Okay. And Mark has said as such. Okay. But
Mark actually knew some basketball to his credit.
Yeah. Over time for sure. And I like Mark a lot. Like, so yeah. But Mark also understood business, in a the business of basketball at the very least, he understood it. I would say arguably as well as anyone. Cappy.
Right. Because trading Luka was not just a basketball issue. It was a business issue, to your point. Keep rolling.
Correct. So when, the change of ownership happens, now Nico has a new audience, right? And an audience that's not as well-versed in, forget about basketball, just the business of basketball, right? Or the business of sports. This is a ownership group that, as you've detailed earlier, is a casino group. It's black, it's white, it's profit, it's not profit, right? And they're selling him on this idea, the very much, it's spots and dots, black and white, right? Profit or not profit. There's this guy. Yes, he's incredibly talented, but we can't get him to be in shape for us to take the next step. And now we're going to have to pay him nearly $400 million. Are you going to be willing to do that? Again, these are people who look at spreadsheets all day, right? From a casino. And he convinces them that this is what is in the best interest of the organization. This person, as naive as they are, goes along with it. And by the way, I am not absolving them. As a matter of fact, I feel like they deserve as much, if not greater blame, because at some point you have to think to yourself, wait, my best asset, even if you're just thinking them as assets, my best asset, I'm going to trade them for what?
Yes, you just said that's important, George. Hold on right there. I'm going to trade my best asset, and what am I getting in return?
Right.
So what I'm getting in return is a guy who's an asset who's chronically injured, as we've documented, number one. And number two, what am I bringing into my locker room? In other words, am I getting somebody who's going to help me take over this team, somebody who's going to lead this team? Well, if you were paying attention to what was going on with the Lakers, the one thing you knew about the asset, we'll call him by his name at this point, Anthony Davis, you knew two things. Number one, the guy is chronically injured. Okay, that's not an opinion. That is a statistical fact on his career. That's number one. Yes. And number two, this is an opinion. He's never been and is never going to be and doesn't have the personality for number one leadership.
Okay, to go back to my question real fast. So you're saying that Nico Harrison was planting seeds the entire time and was just telling
Yes, he was hell-bent on Luka needs to be in shape, but Cuban would never have...
Of course Cuban wouldn't. So, okay, right. So all of this, because the way that I understood it was that Nico was doing what ownership wanted, but in reality,
no,
Nico
it
was the other way around. He was the one planting seeds, telling everybody this is what has to happen, and then they just greenlit off of his idea. But because they greenlit off of his idea, they didn't even let him finish out, like you mentioned at the very beginning. They didn't even let him finish out his vision,
right?
Which is crazy to me.
No, but you know why though?
Greg? On paper, Cappy, this team should be good. They should be good defensively. Right. They should have good, with Kyrie and Anthony Davis, they should be good offensively in certain different areas. They have bigs, they have shooting, they have a whole bunch of everything, but they're all injured.
Right. So Kyrie's hurt, so you're not going to see what this team could be, at least this year. Anthony Davis is hurt in the early part of this season, so you're not going to see what they're supposed to be. And really, the future of their team is Cooper Flagg. So here's the thing. When you ask the question of why didn't they let him get to see his game plan play out, now it comes down to scapegoating, okay? Because now the ownership has this kid walk up to him and say, hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm wearing a Luka Lakers jersey. Now, all of a sudden, George, to your point about the business of basketball, now this new ownership group who's never been in pro sports per se, now all of a sudden they're finding out, well, the fan base is essentially revolting. We thought it was bad last year when they were having funerals.
It's
out
gotten
in front
worse.
It's only gotten worse, not better. So
but
now
isn't this doubling down on stupid? Like, if you're going to do the first thing was stupid, but now you're doubling down and being more stupid by firing Nico.
No, they got to scapegoat somebody.
So I let's take a quick break, and then I will get into how this became the Lakers' luck, right?
Yes, very
on
lucky.
the other side. So I've gotten you to the point of Nico and how he felt and how he was the driver of Luka is out of shape, Luka's out of shape, Luka's out of shape, permeating throughout the organization, eventually getting a new audience with a new owner, right? And then how the Lakers get involved, we'll get into that on the other side. His whole mantra of Luka's out of shape was led by him and permeated throughout the organization. And eventually, once he got a new audience, when it wasn't Mark Cuban as the owner or Patrick Dumont, convinced them of trading him because of the amount of money they were going to have to pay him. And they felt he would, quote-unquote, break down, okay? That was kind of the way it was looked at, okay? So, fast forward now. Trade happens, okay? Everyone is stunned. After the fact, I'm in Dallas, right, for the first national TV game after the trade. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking to a lot of people, okay, during this. I get there super early that day. And I'm like, we're going to talk to a lot of people, okay? We're going to talk to a bunch of people in the organization. And we set that up, and we're talking to fans. We're talking to everybody, okay? So in those conversations, I asked the people of the organization, okay? I said, why did this happen when it happened? And the story that was relayed to us was the story I gave you about the finals. And, this notion that, when Kobe lost, this is how he reacted. And LeBron lost, this is how he reacted. And when Luka lost, it was just like, whatever. Like, that was the way they phrased it, okay? Mm-hmm. So that was the first question. The second question was about dealing with the Lakers, because obviously the story Shams had was this was one-on-one, this was dealing with the Lakers. The Athletic then came out with a story the next day that said that they had talked to other teams. I asked Nico straight up, did you deal with other teams? There's this report out there. He said, no, we just dealt with the Lakers. Mm-hmm. Okay. And by the way, he probably should have told me, no, I did deal with other teams, because it probably would have suited him better in that scenario. Mm-hmm. All right. So then the follow-up question to the people of the organization who were sitting there was, well, the biggest criticism is the haul that you got, right? Or the lack of a haul that you got. Because, rightfully so, if you trade a generational star, you get everything. You get, in this case, it would have been Austin Reeves. You get both picks. You get everything, right? You get everything from them, okay? And then you figure it out, okay? Because if you're going to trade a star, for God's sake, Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-rounders, okay? And the response we got, which, listen, good for Rob, man, was, well, because we wanted to keep this under wraps and the Lakers could not talk to him about whether he would sign an extension or not, they weren't willing to commit to more than just the one first-rounder in Anthony Davis. And honestly, I don't know how I didn't bust out laughing in that scenario, because I was like, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, why would you care what their response is? Like, in any negotiation, if you know you have the goods, like, if you have the asset everybody wants, like, why would you tell them, well, that's tough. That's your problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, Cappy, would you not have done that?
Yeah, but I'm trying to, I think there's one other little small piece of information here, and you'll have to check me on this. Explain the relationship.
Well, they go back, right? The relationship between Nico and Rob goes way back because Nico was Kobe's guy at Nike. Nico Harrison was a Nike executive for a long time, and Nico was Kobe's guy.
Right.
So him and Rob knew each other very well for many years.
What about Nico and Anthony Davis?
Nico also, he's known Anthony Davis since he was in high school because of Nike.
Okay.
And, Anthony Davis was a Nike kid in Chicago and then eventually at Kentucky and so on and so forth. So, all those relationships stemmed from the business relationship at Nike.
So here's what I want to say. So when Nico, just put yourself in his shoes for a minute, okay?
You should do the role-playing thing to make it easier.
Okay, I'm going to be Nico. I'm going to be Nico right now, which is this. I think I've got a really great player in Luka Dončić. This kid, though, refuses to get himself into the type of physical condition it takes to win an NBA championship. I'm Nico. I've been around the NBA. I've been around it a long time. I've been around the biggest stars of the game, and I know what those guys are made of. I know what is in Kobe's heart. I know what's in LeBron's heart. And guess what? I don't see that in Luka's heart. So for me,
guts, grit.
I don't see those guts and that grit in Luka. I think he's a great talent, but I don't think he's a Euro player. And I don't mean to knock it. I'm trying to make a point that when I heard Giannis say it's not a failure, Giannis looks at not winning a championship as it's not a failure. LeBron or Kobe, to use these examples, they looked at it as this is a massive failure.
I will say this. We are also now taking Giannis's comments a little bit out of context, because it's a good soundbite. But what Giannis was basically saying that day was it's not a failure because only one team wins the championship. We've already won one, and this season didn't go our way. That's really the real context of that quote.
But I think what I'm trying to get at is that I'm trying to put myself in Nico's mindset. And in Nico's mindset, he doesn't think that Luka, frankly, I'll just be blunt about it, he doesn't think Luka cares as much as these other guys using Kobe and LeBron.
He doesn't think he's a dog.
Right. So
correct.
Now,
he doesn't think that. Right. Yes, I would agree with that.
Right.
But I don't want to invoke the Euro thing. I don't think that has anything to do with anything.
But it's just an opinion. So it's my opinion. I'll hold on to it. It's mine. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So now you can't get the kid to get into the kind of shape that he can get in, that he needs to be in. You actually are willing to go out and tell people that, okay? So now it's becoming a little bit publicly embarrassing. And moreover, you are willing to take on Anthony Davis, and you know about his injury history, and you know that he's not been considered a leader, okay? And you're willing to take on Anthony Davis, but go back, George, because why? Because there's a long-term relationship. So Nico, in some way, feels like I know what I'm going to get at Anthony Davis, and I know what I cannot get out of Luka.
And he trusted that that he also had a relationship with Kyrie, right? So I think that he trusted his relationships. Unfortunately for him, Kyrie tore up his knee. And by the way, Kyrie also had an injury history, but Kyrie was playing amazing basketball prior to that injury.
So, but what happens now, though, because you started all of this with the trade. Now, if we
get to the trade, right?
Yeah.
We get to the trade, and the trade kind of goes down like this. It's all relationship based. You're heading down the right path. Relationship with Anthony Davis, relationship with Kyrie, lack of relationship or being able to connect with Luka on what he wants him to do, which had never been an issue prior. Relationship with Rob. So this was sold to the owner, the new owner, Dumont. Hey, he's not in shape. We can't pay him this amount of money. We can't trust him. He's going to break down. I can figure this out because I've got all these relationships. Let's deal with the Lakers because I've got this relationship. This one player, if we get Anthony Davis, defense wins championships. I can get us to a championship with a healthy Kyrie and Anthony Davis. We can win the title. That's what he convinces him of. And with no thought to the business aspect of it, the thought of, and it showed his novice GM skills, although he had done a good job building that roster that got them to the finals. But it showed his novice GM skills, almost this bravado of, I don't need all these picks, right? Because, again, I just told you Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-rounders, okay? Rudy Gobert went for 4. So you should have – but they didn't want to open up the floodgates because they didn't want the publicity of, they're going to trade Luka, and what would that do to the team? Which, by the way, also a miscalculation because – it didn't help the team moving forward anyway,
right.
Even though you did it quietly behind closed doors and didn't get anything for Luka in return to what his value
But what
should have been.
But think about the sell. Hold, real quick. Think about the sell. Think about going to the ownership and selling this to them. And, George, you pointed it out. These guys, they're business owners. They're not basketball people, right? So as business owners, especially people who are running casinos, it's black and white. There's profit and there's loss, okay? So now, if you're Nico, you go to ownership, and here's how you sell it. He's out of shape. He's likely going to break down, and here's what you guys are on the hook for. You're looking at paying this guy $400 million, and you know what? You're not going to get anywhere near the value of that expense.
Correct.
So now you're on the receiving end of his sell. He's trying to sell you. And you're thinking to yourself, do I want to spend $400 million for a guy that doesn't seem committed, can't get himself into world-class shape, doesn't seem to have the kind of desire it takes? If he did, he would get himself into that kind of shape. And do I want to take the risk of paying a guy to sit on the bench? If I'm thinking about it from their perspective, it's almost an easy sell. Because they don't know enough about basketball.
If you're naive, right? Yes,
Right.
And you're not a novice at this. Yes.
Okay. If you're them, so you're thinking, I'm not going to get these picks, so I'm going to take, because the Lakers picks were what, 2029, 2031.
Right.
They were later on down the line. You're trying to win this right now with Kyrie, with Anthony Davis in their early 30s. Right. So all of it makes sense in that, because if you look at their roster,
no, it makes no sense. It's really dumb. Actually,
no, it's dumb to move them, but obviously you want more picks.
No. Even it's dumb to only take the one pick. So I straight up asked, the question to these people. I said about the haul, and I said, do you think it's fair criticism? And they responded with, yes, we understand the criticism was fair, but again, because they couldn't talk to him, because quote, Rob told us that because we couldn't talk to him, or they couldn't talk to him, that they couldn't give us more than the first round pick. And I would say collective, and Rob should be sinister laughing the whole way to the bank on this.
Which
Honestly, if I was Pelinka in that scenario, and I love Pelinka, man. Pelinka, to his credit, has really done a good job. Okay, and it wasn't always. It didn't always feel like this was the case, right? Mm-hmm. But he has done a good job. And if I'm Pelinka, there's no way I'm not on my cell phone at that point, right? And going, okay, hold on, Nico. Oh my God, Genie, he's gonna trade us Luka, and we only have to give the one first rounder up in Anthony Davis. We don't even have to give up Austin Reeves, because I've told him we can't, because we can't talk to him about an extension.
Right,
and
but
Genie's
what
probably
about Max Christie?
Are you serious?
And Max Christie.
All right, how about this? I'll throw in Max Christie.
Right,
for
here, you want Max Christie? Max
Yeah.
Christie's bound to grow up and be able to grow a mustache. We'll give you Max Christie. How about that?
So there's no way that they're not sitting there going, how is this happening? We need to absolutely tell them we're in, and this is what we're doing. Whereas Nico showed, for lack of a better phrase, his tookus.
Yeah.
Okay, because he didn't know how to negotiate in this scenario. And Rob absolutely took him to school.
Right. But the guy who should be getting blamed, the guy who should be getting blamed is the guy who's doing the firing, not the guy who's being fired. Meaning,
oh, no, I agree. The owner of the Mavs, it's where we started this conversation.
Yeah.
He absolutely needs to come to the podium or a lectern or whatever and say, you know what, we let go of Nico, but I am to blame here. I screwed this up.
Because here's the miscalculation. And again, this is new ownership who they are Vegas people who are now coming to Dallas. The miscalculation, George, was the lack of understanding that the fan base would revolt.
And they continue to.
Right,
yes.
That's the point. Not only would the fan base revolt in the immediate aftermath of the trade, the fans have revolted by something you said earlier, which is the lack of attendance, the lack of season ticket sales, the lack of merch sales, the fact that this young kid is wearing a Luka Lakers jersey when he walks up to apologize to the owner. The ownership missed the fact that the fan base would revolt, and that would affect the bottom line.
Let me tell you something. If you're a Laker fan, you should pray every day that Nico Harrison was silly enough to trade Luka Dončić to the Lakers for one first rounder, Anthony Davis, and Max Christie. Okay? No disrespect to any of them. That is not anywhere in the stratosphere of what it should have cost to get you Luka Dončić. And you should thank if and when the Lakers hoist another championship banner, they should send Nico a ring.
Hell yeah.
Let me tell you something. What we didn't know when the trade happened was what we were getting in Luka. We knew what Luka was on the basketball floor.
Yeah.
We didn't know what he was inside, and we're learning that now because of the way they insulted him, and we'll pick it up from there.